Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining. This is what we call the Microsoft Data Platform Continuity Virtual Group Presentation for July 2023. And I always laugh because this year is just flying by. With me today is arguably the best beard in the industry, Rob Sewell, with a new presentation called Automating Your DBA Task with DBA Tools and DBA Checks. And quite frankly, if you have not been using DBA tools, you need to crawl out from under the rock that you're under, because this is by far the best platform out there for automating all this. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Rob. And don't forget, have any question you want, put it in the chat window, and we will answer those as they come in.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, honestly, this presentation is about having some fun and about learning some things. So no question is too small or too big. We will break things. It's all in containers, so it makes no difference. Whole point is that people learn stuff. So yeah, as David said, my name's Rob. I am not based in the US. I'm in the UK. It's now 6 p.m. over here in the Southwest, and the sun is shining. So I'm looking forward to getting to the end of this so I can go and have some food in the sun. Most importantly, if you need to get in touch with me, the best way is to Google me and find me on whichever social media platform you choose, except Facebook. I don't do Facebook, but feel free to LinkedIn, to Twitter, to Threads, to Instagram, to hang on a minute, what else we got? Got my blog, you can send me an email. You know, I don't mind. Just go find some stuff. What do I do? It's really hard nowadays to explain what it is that I do, because I just help people to do stuff. Most of the time, I am helping customers. I'm going to stand up because I realize I've been sitting down for a long time today. I help customers to deploy things. So I'm working at the moment on a big Terraform project to deploy whatever the customer needs, and sort of abstracting away all of the complications. But then I can be helping to, automate a backup and restore process with PowerShell. So I can be all over the place. Once upon a time, I was a production SQL DBA, but those days are long gone now. So it's fun. And basically, I like to talk about stuff. And because I like to talk about stuff, and it's something I enjoy doing, Microsoft gave me an MVP. So I'm an MVP in cloud and data center management, and also in data platform. And that's because I live in two worlds. So I live in the data platform world, but I also live in the PowerShell world. I'm one of the PowerShell Conference Europe organizers. We just had it in Vienna. Looking forward to next year. So if anybody's in Europe, come over and spend some time with us next year. And because I'm a glutton for punishment, I'm also one of the committee that organizes SQL Bits, which is like PASS Summit, but better because it's in the UK and we have a load of fun. It's just as good. I like both of them. But we're going to talk about PowerShell. So this is PowerShell Hero. She is one of the great things about the world of automation, especially within Microsoft, but also within any technology that you use. You can pretty much use PowerShell with. My 60-minute timer is on my screen, Steve. Thank you so much. There we go. So, but actually, we're going to talk about how we can use this for a DBA. So the thing I'd say about learning PowerShell is learn PowerShell because it will help you to automate things. If you learn about it in the world that you understand and you can take your life forward, your career forward. You can always be useful to do the things because you understand that basic ability to automate. I'm the same. I started as a production SQL DBA. I needed to automate a lot of stuff. I started learning PowerShell. Now, when somebody says, can you update all of these things in Hyper-V? It's like, yeah, sure, let's go find the PowerShell command. I might not know the precise PowerShell command, but I know how to do that automation piece. But we're also going to talk about DBA tools. For those who don't know, DBA tools is best said like this. I have no idea who Digital Home is. This is a Slack thing they did very early on, and they've just said, basically, you take all the rubbish parts about writing PowerShell for SQL Server and just made it really easy. Because when I started doing things with SQL Server and PowerShell, I was writing with SMO, SQL Management Objects, the .NET programming interface to connect into SQL Server. You know all about it because it's exactly what SQL Server Management Studio uses. So that is exactly what you've got. If you think about the Object Explorer and the way that is split up, that's SMO. Literally, that's what SMO is doing. So that means that you get all of the good parts, but you also get some of the bad parts. So if you connect Management Studio to an instance with 5,000 databases on, and you try and click that little plus button to expand the databases, Management Studio just goes blank. Some of that is obviously the operating system and that capability, but the other part of it is actually Management Studio. Because what you're asking is you're asking for Management Studio to tell you the name of all the databases. And what SMO does is it goes to get all 5,000 of those database names and a load of other information as well. And it just can't handle it. And it's a bit rubbish. So that's DBA tools, takes away all of that complication and makes that, please expand the databases on this instance into get-dba database. So real simple, really helps you to understand what is going on. But realistically, I always think that DBA tools is actually more like this, because it literally means that I can go to sleep like a kitten whilst my environment updates, whilst my backups and restores happen, whilst I copy things and I upgrade them. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. If I've scripted it and I've tested it, I can just run that script and let that automation carry on. So quick history lesson, because you're like, well, where's this DBA tools thing came from? And this is the person that it came from. This is Chrissy Lemaire. Chrissy Lemaire is an American bundle of fun and energy. She now lives in Europe doing amazing things with automation, and she needed to migrate some SharePoint databases from one version to another. And being somebody interested in automation, she thought, well, there must be a way of doing this. So she went and looked, and there wasn't. Being Chrissy, what she then did was she went, right, okay, I'll write something. So she wrote start SQL migration.ps1, which was just a script file, which sat on Microsoft Script Center. And in fact, up until Microsoft Script Center disappeared, it was still there. And she, because of this, she became an MVP, and whilst at the MVP summit in Redmond, she was chatting with the PowerShell team, and they said, ship it. Let's turn this into a module, make it open source, put it out to the gallery. This is just the sort of thing that we want. So she started that. And in June of 2016, she came and she spoke to myself and Claudia Silva and a few other people that she knew were doing PowerShell in the SQL world. And she said, hey, I've built this thing. Please, can you start adding the things that you've got into it? So the first thing was Claudio's expand SQL T-log responsibly. And I was next with remove SQL database safely, the whole process to enable you to decommission your SQL databases whilst making sure that they were backed up, that you had an agent job to restore from that particular backup, and everything was as it should be. And that was June. And from there, we moved forward and we built the SQL Server community Slack, which started as a way for DBA tools to collaborate, and now was turned into 20 some odd thousand members, all talking about all sorts of things in the data platform. And we kept on going, and by 6 months later, we realized that actually, Rob used SQL Server because that was the same as the there's the SQL team we're using, and Chrissy used Instance, and Claudio used SQL Instance. We had all of this different complexity, all of this confusion, and we needed to have some standardization. So pretty much typical project thing. And so we thought we'll have just a code freeze. We'll do a 2-month code freeze. And of course, you all know how these sort of projects go. So in 2018, we MIT licensed it. So that's really important to know that this is open source, but it's also MIT licensed, which means you can use it. You can use it wherever you want to. That's absolutely fine. And in 2019, so a little bit more than 2 months, DBA tools 1.0 arrived, all standardized and everything. And this is all old news because now DBA tools 2.0 has arrived, and we're going to talk about that when we look at some demos. But here are some figures from about April of last year. So there had been 360,000 lines of code in DBA tools. There had been over 16,000 commit messages. There were 839 versions had been released to the gallery because we built this thing not just as some code for some people, but a whole process of how to deliver a PowerShell module to the gallery with testing, with good functionality. We put all of the framework around making sure we had things as they were expected. Chrissy didn't believe in unit tests. Chrissy believed in QA testing. So we had a whole environment where we would actually restore databases. We would sync databases. We would copy them from place to place. We would add availability groups just to make sure that everything was there. We also had some unit tests. So I did a lot of tester work to make sure that every single command has got the right sort of help. We made sure that we kept a lot of standardization together. And it wouldn't be what it is without all of the people. So there are hundreds of people who have committed code to the PowerShell, to the GitHub repository. And there are even more people who have written blog posts, who have asked questions, who have created issues, who have looked at pull requests, who helped build QA systems. This has been a complete thing around a lot of people. And I say that because the question that comes is quite often, well, Microsoft have got a PowerShell module for SQL Server. Why should we use this one? And the answer is always the same. The people at Microsoft, who are fabulous people, who are writing the PowerShell module, are doing it in 0.1 or 0.2 of their time. You've got hundreds of people who are doing it in their own time because they want to, because they believe in it, because they have passion about it. They're practicing and testing it all over the world with all the different languages, all the different ways of installing SQL, making sure that all of those things are passed. And building it all in this big solution to make sure that everything is as you expect it. So for sure, Microsoft's SQL Server module is absolutely fine at what it does. It has 100 and something functions. DBA tools has 500 or 600, which is actually too many. And that's another thing that we'll talk to with DBA tools 2.0 in a minute. Number of downloads. We can only get the figures about the downloads from the PowerShell gallery. And we're now, well, that was nearly 1.5 million. That was a few months ago. So it's way more than that now. And there are a significant number that also use it from the GitHub release. But actually, we don't know how many people really have downloaded and used DBA tools, but it is used all over the world. So now that you've, keep going, thank you. Now that you've got DBA tools and you know about it, you're like, well, how do we get this? This is how we install a PowerShell module. And I don't mean this is how you install DBA tools. I mean, this is how you install any PowerShell module. So think about PowerShell as these days as a very small, capable coding language. And actually what we want is all of these packages around it for the things that you want to do. So if you're going to work with VMware and SQL Server and DNS, then you're going to have those modules in it. But if you're going to work with Azure and Azure DevOps and Terraform, then you have a different sort of module on it. And we can go and get all of those modules from the PowerShell gallery with install-module. So that's how we get it with DBA tools. This functionality on the screen is for Windows PowerShell, so Windows PowerShell 5.1. If you do an install module, then you will be automatically trying to install it for all users on the machine. It needs to be run as an admin. If you want to just use it for yourself, you'll have to put in the scope current user. PowerShell has now evolved. Windows PowerShell is now finished. I don't mean it's no longer in use. I mean, it is complete. There will be no more further updates to Windows PowerShell unless there is something significantly security related. But PowerShell 7, PowerShell Core, is the future. It's where all of the PowerShell team's work is going, and it is significantly better in a number of ways. It is quicker. It works cross-platform, so it'll work on your Mac, it'll work on Linux, it'll work in Windows, it'll work everywhere. And it's always being updated. It's open source, so it's not tied to a version of the Windows operating system and only released at that cadence. But some of the things that have changed are the fact that the install module actually is flipped around. So by default, it will just install in your current user. And if you want to install it for all users, you have to take a different step. That's all very well and good, but sometimes we're talking about our SQL instances, and we don't really want to be dealing with those and allowing them to connect to the internet. So how do we install those in a fortress? And again, this doesn't just count for DBA tools, but for anything. And whilst we're talking about security, this is an enterprise level piece of software in that we have code signing certificates that have been bought by data masterminds as a donation to the open source DBA tools, and we sign all of the code with that. So when I say we, it's done automatically, but the people with the ability to get at the passwords and the certificate itself are myself and Chrissy and Fred and Sean Melton. So well-known people spread around the world. We have a bit of disaster recovery available to us there, so we can make sure. Code signing means that you are guaranteed that the code that you have in the PowerShell gallery, the code that you see on GitHub for that release, is the code that it will be downloaded to your machine. There is no guarantee that after that, somebody just doesn't go and turn, the code that says backup DBA database into remove DBA database. That happens on your machine, and that's what happens. But code signing means that you can guarantee that what we have released is what is available to you. So in the Fortress, what you need to do is you need to save your module. So save -module, DBA tools, or any other module to a path, and then carry it over the mountain, whichever way means there are for you to do that, and then install it. Now, installing it just means copying the files into a directory. C, program files, window PowerShell modules. That's going to do it for everybody. If you're using PowerShell Core, it will be C, program files, PowerShell modules. And Ubuntu and Mac, you can look up because I can never do those straight off my head. If there can only be one person to use it, then you can just put it in their user profile in the documents, Windows PowerShell module. And again, for PowerShell Core, it would just be PowerShell modules. Now, being great programmers, what we love to do is we love to write documentation. No, I'm joking. We hate writing documentation. We have unit tests to make sure that we have documentation. But it also means that within PowerShell, the way that you can find out how to run any command, and for DBA tools in particular, is you can run get-help, the name of the command. And that will enable you to have everything. We also have that because we like writing websites, we love writing documentation. We've automated the process so that all of that help is automatically put into docs.dbatools.io. So if you want to look at it on a web page and then do your work alongside it, you can grab it in that way. But also there's a lot of support available to you in the community world. So the SQL Server community Slack has the DBA tools channel, and in there, as you can see, it took like 7 minutes for Andy to come back to somebody to answer a question that they had. It's a vibrant world within that Slack channel. You'll also find the same thing in the GitHub issues and discussions place. So they're two different things. An issue is please raise something about DBA tools, but it's also the discussions area. Oh, I don't understand how this works, or does anybody know how to do? Yeah, those things can be done there in a longer, more robust way, something that's going to stand the test of time, because Slack will just throw away your messages after X amount of days. And as I said earlier on, got a question? Ask away. Throw it into the chat, and David and Chris will just throw them at me. Otherwise, I am just going to go and start having some fun. So I'm going to wait for a sec to see if there are any questions coming through.
So far, I think we're good. So I'd say get rolling. And if anybody has any questions, again, please drop them in the chat window, and we will proudly interrupt them and get them answered.
Do that. I love it. So let's talk about DBA Tools 2.0. So we talked about DBA Tools 1. We talked about the time it took to get there, the standardization. We also said about the number of commands. Now, if you remember, we said about SMO. And SMO is Microsoft's way of programmatically connecting to SQL Server. It's what SQL Server Management Studio uses. And what happened is we had a big change in the way that we secure our connection to our SQL Server. And this has meant that we've got a new version of SMO. And this gave us the opportunity at DBA Tools to actually split DBA Tools into component parts. At the moment, the component part is DBA Tools and DBA Tools.library. But the .library is the SMO version. And that means that from 2.0 onwards, we're always going to have that new SMO available to us, but we're still going to have the old DBA Tools available. And then the idea is that then, just like with PowerShell, is that we might start to split the module up into smaller bite-sized chunks to make it easier for us to work on, because people who know stuff about availability groups might not be the same people who know about replication or some other parts. And also it'll reduce the sort of testing and things we don't do, because we won't have to be interplaying with everything. If you want to know, you will find, I think it's under dbatools.io/secure, will take you to Chrissy's blog post, which she explains all of the things, and particularly this, because we like to make it easy. We've always been about making PowerShell easy for people and making sure that it's user-friendly. So we try and give you all the information that you need. We'll look at that when we do some demos, but in particular here, when you install DBA Tools 2.0, you suddenly get all of this stuff. And it's important to know this is okay. And also, we try and say, this is how you change the values, and this is why they are. So it's dbatools.io/new defaults. That takes you to this blog post. And then this is how we can reset the config so you don't see this message anymore. And here's the explanation of why it happens. So let's dive into this. Here we go. So this is Azure Data Studio. And the thing that we've learned from very wise people is that what we do is we press Control, Shift, and P, and we type theme, and we change the color theme. Because no matter how much I love working in dark mode, and I love working in dark mode, what we need to do when we are doing demonstrations is think about everybody else. And everybody else should will be more comfortable. Let's go with light Visual Studio. With a light mode, it's more likely to be available for people who have color blindness, etc. So this says, shall we play a game? And we'll say yes. And then you get Pac-Man, you get the ghost chasing Pac-Man across, Pac-Man getting rid of everything. And we'll just do, we'll close that and we'll do a 1. We'll start with an instruction. And the beauty of this is you can do exactly what I am doing here. Okay, if you go to my GitHub, so beard.media/git will get you there, and you find the bits DBA tools repository. If you clone that, it will open up and it will say, hey, we're in a dev container. Would you like me to open in a dev container? Which means that we can do exactly this that we're doing now. It also means that I can run it in the browser if I wish to, using GitHub code spaces. And this dev container, we've got a Docker Compose, and you can see we've got DBA tools 1. There's an image with SQL Server on it. We've got DBA tools 2, so it's a second version of SQL Server. And we've got, oh no, we've only got DBA tool 1 and 2 for this one. So we've got 2 SQL servers and all of the PowerShell, but you can do everything that you want to. We don't want to install Docker though. Thank you very much. So that means that you can just go and find this, you can play with this, you can have all of this, it's all free and available for you. Go and enjoy as much as you like. So this is now very basic PowerShell learning. How do we find out about commands? Okay. What we do is we don't have the ability to run that. Okay. So we can just do get dash command and the module. And what you'll find is there are so many commands that, oh, you haven't activated that yet. Excellent. This is going to be fun. We'll just do a copy paste. And there are 687 commands there. So how do we find commands? And this is kind of interesting because even Chrissy can't remember all of the commands that there are there. So what we did is we wrote a command to find the commands. So we've got find-dba command, and that enables us to use a tag, in this case backup, because backups are important. And this will find you all of the commands in the module that have backup in the name or backup in the synopsis. So we can do that for restore or migration or agent. You could even do something like a pattern. So you can do a pattern which will, she'll just do it back. Okay, that's good. Yeah, let's copy you there. We'll do a pattern of user. That's now going to find us a load more commands that have anything to do with user in them. What I might just do, no, I won't. I'll just keep copying and pasting. But once we've found a command that we want to look at, we can then, as we said, always just use get help. So here we've got get help, the test DBA linked server connection, and it gives us the full. So that's all of the information we've got about it. It gives us the name. That's fun. It gives us a syntax, and it gives us all of our parameters. So one thing that we can do is, that's not going to work. We're going to have to do it like this because we're in core, is we will pass. Oh boy. We can pass get help to find DBA command, find the pattern role. I'm going to select the command name and the synopsis and put them into this out console grid view, which is this pop-up, the GUI like that we've got here, and grab our command name. So maybe we want to grab add DBA AG replica. That's a good one. I can hit enter, and that should now give me the help for my replica, except it's magically not doing that. So I'm going to flick into here and just do a queue for quit and see if I can run that from here whilst we load. Nope, we're not going to load there. Let's see if we've got any help. Still don't have any help. Awesome. We'll just keep going then. So let's have a look at some things. This is nice and easy because we can just be getting some information. So PowerShell works on verb noun, noun verb, get-dba database, the SQL instance DBA tools 1. And what we get is this failure because the remote certificate was rejected. And what we need to do for that is to fix our problem. So we're going to set this We're going to set this from here. So it's always good if you remember how you're supposed to be doing your things. So what we like to do is this. So we're going to set some defaults with our dbatools config. Just make sure this says. So set dbatools config, the SQL connection encrypt and the trust cert to true. Ooh, let's not do it there. Let's do it here. To true and to false. Oh, wow. I'm having all of the demo fun today. Right, actually copy this time. There we go. Control C. And then actually paste it. Okay, so now actually paste it again. Yep, I would like you to run that. Awesome. So now, if we do that, yay, there we go. So that's DBA Tools 2.0 in action. This is a sort of problem that you're going to get if you do an upgrade. Is your code that worked? This code has worked for thousands of times, now doesn't work. And the error that we got said, remote certificate failure, blah, 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 blah. They're like, oh, hang on a minute. We know about this. Got the blog post that we can use, the new defaults, which can set our config. And to be honest, we could set that config to register for every time, but it won't ever stay in this container because we always re-download DBA tools, but that's by the by. So to get DBA database, and what it does is it goes, hey, here you go. Here are all of the databases on this one instance. And you're like, great. So we will always get computer name, instance name, SQL instance. And that is added onto any SMO output that we get. And then we have the name of our database, what the status is accessible, recovery model, log reuse, weight statistics, size, compatibility, and all of these things when it was last backed up. Well, perhaps we won't look at that just now. But it all comes out in a big long list. This is our default output. So if you wish to get it into a way that looks a little bit nicer, then you can do it like this. You can format in this way. In fact, what we will do, because we're zoomed in a bit, is we will just do it like this. And we'll take out, let's take out the SQL instance and see what we get. No, we're not going to get that far up. Okay. Take out computer name as well. There we go. So as you can see, because we've got a width output for our CLI, we're only going to get so many columns in. And PowerShell is clever enough that as you format that output, it will change it from being in a list so that it fits or into here like this. And the other good thing that we can do is you can come to here, we'll do dbatools1 and we'll pipe it to bit-member. And this is going to show you all of the methods and the properties and the events that are available to you on this object. Because PowerShell is object oriented. This is not text. This is not text that we've got. Well, this is text that we've got. What we had before wasn't text. It was the output of an object, just reference as text. And as you can see, for a SQL Server management SMO database, just to show you, DBA Tools is magic, but it is just basically using SMO underneath the hood. What we've got here are all of the events and methods. We want to do a dbcc check table. We want to enumerate all of our objects, or we want to execute a query. We can do all of these methods here. We've got all of these properties. So active connections all the way down to, right, there's a whole bundle of stuff. So when you first run this DBA tools, get DBA database, and you're just getting these few properties back to you, don't think that that's all that is available. You can get pretty much all the things that you want to do. You'll often see people, let's do that. Perhaps we can do the same. Guess what? Get DBA logins. It's going to get you your logins. And people will often just pipe that to format table. What does pipe mean? Pipe means whatever the output is of the first command, we're going to pass it down into the second command. So as long as your PowerShell developers have written the code in the right way, we can then take the output of this and pass it through. Format table is pretty easy. What format table does is it turns whatever you've got into text and then formats it in a table view. And you can format that in a variety of ways if you wish to. The pain with this is what you can't do is then do anything else after your format table other than put it out to the host. That's literally the only thing we could format to. We couldn't, for example, export it to CSV. Okay, okay. Let's do a path. Do that. There we go. If we now look in that, let's get the content GCE. Oh, good working. Yeah. So what we did was we got all of our logins. We formatted them as a table, and we then said, well, can you export that as a CSV, please? And it went, yeah, sure, here you go. Here's your CSV, GUID, page entry, page footer entry, auto size info, shape info, grouping entry, blah. Oh, and GUID, load of stuff we don't know, and it's a table header info. So if you're ever going to use format, don't put it into a command that you're writing, always use it afterwards. Just for the sake of doing this, let's take away our format table from there, and we'll export, and then we'll get our information again. And this time you can see, actually, when we don't format it in some weird way, what we get is computer name, instance name, SQL instance, all of the properties. Now, when you do this with a SMO object without specifying the properties that you want, you end up with a whole load of stuff, and it makes it kind of fun to play with. If you only want some of them, then you will just go select name, what we got. Got what we got. Oh, that's good. My camera is overheated. Let's see if we can switch that. Oh, okay. You'll have to do without seeing me at all then. But I am still here. We have got last login. There we go. So let's do name and last login, and then we pipe that. Then our CSV will just be the name and the last login. It's obviously not called name, but that's okay. You get the point. You'll also get the point that actually you notice I use the same file name for just the name and the last login, for the whole thing, for the format table. And PowerShell went, yeah, sure, poof, let's just do that. Threw it all over the top without any worries at all. It wasn't even slightly bothered. So let's move on. DBA tools, we don't have to worry about just using a single instance. We can use as many instances as we like. So if we just come back to here and we can just do DBA tools 1, tools 2. We hit that and we formatted table. So FT is the alias for format table. And now you can see that in our SQL instance column, we've got SQL 1 and SQL 2. And we can do this as many times as we want to. So you can actually do silly things like this. Go for it. Ask the question. If that was a question. If it was just a blip, that's okay too. And we talked about piping. We talked about having good developers able to write stuff that allows you to pipe your outputs from one command and push them into another command. Well, this is what we're going to do now. So we're going to get our DBA databases on these two instances. Exclude system. You know what that means? We don't want the system databases. And then show me the files, please. There we go. As quickly and as easily as that. We're running on 2 containers, but it's on this host. I'm not David. I've only got about 90 gig of RAM on here, running 3 screens, running Zoom and all the rest of it. But we've got some containers running there. And you can see that we've got the information about all of our files. So then you can start to think, well, what else do we want? You know how to get DBA login, you know how to get DBA file, get DBA database, you know, there's all of these things. You're going to be able to guess what the command is. If not, you're going to use find DBA command. But one thing that we always want to know is how, keep pressing F8. I'm going to do that a lot, I think. What our builds are. So how do we know if we can have our instance, if we are ready to upgrade or update our instances? So what we've done here is we're using the get DBA build reference command. This command leads to some of the quickest and most frequent updates by the community, as it's the easiest way to get a contribution into DBA tools. Because as soon as a new version, a new CU is released, it is available to go to DBA tools. We then run this off a JSON file, and it can then find out what it is. So we've said, what is our reference? What is our build reference for the instances that we've passed in? So that could be 1 or 1,000. And what we get is this information. And I think this is brilliant. So useful, really, really powerful. Use it with clients all the time. Is we get the name and we get our build number. Tells us what version we're running, what SP, what CU level, what KB level, gives us our build level output. It tells us when it's supported until, and it tells us whether we've exactly matched or not. It's absolutely brilliant. You can also flip it around and do it the other way. So you can go, well, I know that this, or no, don't do that. I know that my instance is 10.0.6. When is that supported until? Well, that was supported until 7/9/2019. So that's, oh, I can't press that. Let's do this one. Let's do a get dash index instead. And Pacman will come and he'll clear the screen. And now we can decide what we want to do. So I'm always open to options. If nobody has anything, then I will always do backup and restore, because I have some cool demos there. So if nobody says in 3, 2, 1, number 2, there we go. So now what we're going to have is, that's going to be interesting. I wonder if these tests are going to fail. So this is our PESTA test. So when we were doing our demos, we always made sure that our environment was exactly as we expected it to be. So we always practice what we preached, and here you can see we're passing our tests. That means that all of the things for this backup and restore should be ready and in place. There we go. Apart from validation. Okay, well, we'll see what we get with that. So backing up and restore is really useful. Let's start by having a look at our databases on interesting. Why have you done that? Let's have a look and see what we got a credential in here. Have a look at our environment. Do we have our computer name? Have our remote containers? No. Okay. They're all good. And we use get dash variable. That gives us all of our variables that are available. We've got our container credential. Excellent. So why are you not automatically using our credential? Let's see if we specify it. Or do we have something else wrong? Container control, is that how I've spelt it? Wouldn't surprise me. Yep. Here we go. So we have not got our yes, default parameters are blank. Excellent. So what I will do is I will close that and I'll let that run and I'll explain what happened. So when I tried to log into my container, it said, no, you're trying to log in with the user that we're using and we haven't got Kerberos and blah, blah, blah. That would often take you down a path of pain. But actually, I know that means that in my container, I'm not passing in the credential correctly. So why are we not passing in the credential correctly? And you haven't seen me here in any of these commands that I've run have any sort of credential passed in. I will say yes. And that's because what I've done is I've used PS default parameter values, which means that basically it says every time that you have a SQL credential parameter, just use this credential we've already got set up. So if we do a 2 here, these tests are going to fail because I haven't set my trust cert things in, but that's okay. So when it's really useful because it means that you don't see get-dba database, SQL instance, DBA tools 1, -SQL credential cred, -SQL credential cred, -SQL credential cred all over the code that you're looking at. So it's really useful in that way. Chrissy, can I have the code back, please? Thank you. What I might do is, just in case we have any pain, we'll register it this time. Registering means that we will always be able to restart and we should be good. I'm not so worried about the tests because they passed just now and the container hasn't changed. But if we look at our PS default parameter, default parameter values, interesting. Am I now going to have exactly the same experience? Yes, I am. So clear space is obviously clearing out my default parameter values, which are set to be global. So we shall do that. You can see some of the behind the scenes magic. This says global. So no matter what, whether we're in a script, whether in a module, no matter where, you shouldn't really use this, but it's good for demos. If I'm using a command that has *dba* and the parameter is SQL credential, please use this credential object that we've set up. He said, just thinking about it. Yes. Okay. So now we have got that. Now we will be able to get our thing because the get DBA database command has got a parameter called SQL credential, and it just automatically passes this in through. There you go, some other learning that we've got. Let's have a look and see when our last backup is. Last backup, some of them were in November of 21, and some of them have never been backed up before. I know it's none of you that are watching this, but I have certainly been to places where they have never backed up any of those things. So we will check our file system. We will actually check it without the dot as well. And this shows you this file is, this directory is empty. Now, here's the thing. The directory is empty, not just because I am looking at it from my point of view, but actually this is looking at it from the point of view of the SQL instance. So in these days where we like to keep things very secure, we'll often be troubleshooting why this agent job hasn't picked something up from that path, or why we were not able to back up to this location that we as users can't get to. How do we know if our user accounts can get to that? Well, one way we can do is that's just get DBA file. That's looking at the looking at the directory itself. We can also do a test DBA path, not power plan, path. And that says we can't get there. Interesting. It says we can't get there. I wonder if that's a container thing. Anyway, let's have a look at, maybe it is, because do we actually just go and look there? Yes. I've remembered my demo, and I've remembered why that doesn't work. Because if I go back to here, there we go, true. Okay, so what we had here was we were testing the path that didn't exist. So we weren't able to get to a path that didn't exist. Makes perfect sense. But we were able to get to the path that existed. And the point of this, if I actually read my own demo, is that unlike PowerShell, and indeed unlike Bash, when you try and get the files that are in a directory that doesn't exist, or you try to get a database that doesn't exist, or you try to get a login that doesn't exist, or you try to get an agent job that doesn't exist, or you try to get any of the other things that you can get on a SQL instance and it doesn't exist, what DBA tools gives you back is nothing. And that's because, in my view, what we're asking is not does that directory exist, but actually get me all the files that are in this directory. Get me all the databases on this instance named David Clee. Well, there aren't any. Okay, great. Just tell me nothing. It's not an error. It's not a warning. I don't need to be told, I'm just asking this question. And this is a discussion that I had very strongly with the PowerShell team, because you will find that if you do this with get child item, or you do this with get AD user, that you'll get an error back. Interestingly, that error is different. So to code for that error, which is basically the thing doesn't exist, you have to do two different things for those two experiences, one for AD user and one for a child item, a file. So it's an interesting thing. Anyway, we don't have any backups. We don't even have these directories. And in fact, we don't have any backups of our system database. So really, Rob, you should stop yakking, and we should actually just back these databases up. And the beauty of DBA tools is I can do it like a kitten with one line of code. So backup DBA database, SQL instance, give it the name of the SQL instance, or as many SQL instances as you like. And we'll have the path, and the path here is a new path that we've just created. And that's done all of our full backups. And as you can see, it's outputted some information about these backups. But actually, we want not just full backups, which is what we do by default. We actually want our log backups. Oh, that's good. DBA tools is too quick for SMO then. that's interesting. But what you'll find here is we've said, okay, I want you to back up all of the databases with log backups on this instance. And it's gone, sure, here we go. Hang on a minute, master, it's in simple recovery mode. So we don't do log backups here. It hasn't failed. It hasn't stopped the pipe. It's carried on processing the next one. And it's just given you a warning and said, hey, this is in simple mode. We're not going to take a log backup. And then, like I said, we were so quick that actually we were beating SMO, so it didn't realize that we dropped our connection before we started the next one. We did it again. We've got our backups. Okay, so let's look at our backups. Now we're backing up, pretend this is to a share of some sort. We can look in our backups and we can see from the viewpoint of our SQL instance. So even if I, as a user, cannot get to this, then you can see that these are the files that I have available. Okay. You don't believe me. Let's have a look at it from the point of view of, oh, thanks, LS, for being so wonderful. There we go. We'll have a look. Here are our files on our system. Okay, we've got all of those. And, if you wanted to do it with PowerShell, you can do it with PowerShell as well. So we've got our, what have I done? Oh, I've not done it as recurse. Okay. We've got our backups and our full backups and our log backups for each of our databases on here. And now got our backups. Let's go and see. Oh, I can't press F8, Rob. Let's go and see what's when they last came. So we're going to look at the name, the status, and the last full backup for our user databases. And you can see that they were taken moments ago. So that's excellent. So we can just grab that property from our DBA database SMO object, or you can use get DBA last backup. And that's going to say, oh, you see all of that yellow? Oh, look at this, look at this. Oh, we go, look, see. It's beautiful. Again, we have our backups. Here are our backups. But what we're doing is we're going back through and we're checking and we're like, hang on a minute. When I look at your backup history, I can see you've got backups from all of these different recovery forks from all over the place. This is what has happened. But it just gives it you to as a warning. Alternatively, you can just go straight to get DBA DB backup history. We'll have a look at that, and that's going to tell you the last time that the databases were backed up. This one will go to MSDB. So if your MSDB is huge, guess what? It's going to take a while to come back. And I know what you're saying. You're saying, well, hang on a minute, Rob. We've got 5,000 databases. We don't want to have all of our log and our diff and our transaction log, full backups all in one directory for 5,000 databases for the next 2 years. Please, can you just create a folder for them? So we're sure, absolutely. Because all we do is we do backup DBA database, give it the instance name or instance names. We give it the path to the backups, and then we say create folder. And this time, if we look from the viewpoint of our instance, you can see that we've got master, model, MSDB, Northwind, and pubs directories. And inside there is going to be a database backup. Full one? Yeah, full one. There we go. So DBA tools, just like PowerShell, it's really, really powerful. Things that are really, really powerful enable you to make really big mistakes really quickly across very many instances. For example, it is possible to take down an Exchange server by changing the delay between alerts. Instead of changing it to 1 hour, changing it to 1 millisecond. And if you do that across several thousand SQL instances, about 3:30 in the morning, an Exchange admin will phone you up very, 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 very cross. And you will log onto the system remotely, and you'll log onto your desktop, and you'll find the code that you'd run before you left and go, oh, yeah, look, whoa, that's 1 millisecond. Let's change that to 1 hour. And you'll run it again, and you'll fix the problem. And it'll take you about 40 seconds. And this will not please the Exchange admin who's been called out trying to fix the problem for many hours at all. And it will indeed cost you about 3 trays of donuts. Because that was the fine that I had to pay for causing this problem in the first place. I tell you that story because it shows how quickly and easily you can make a big mistake with PowerShell. And all good PowerShell modules will have confirm and verbose and what if built in. It's actually very simple to code if you're looking at coding the functions yourself. And what you get is this dash what if. And what that says, don't press F8, Rob, because it won't work, is get me all the databases on SQL Instance DBA tools 1, apart from the system ones, and then remove DBA database, please. Except it says, what if? What would I do? And it says, what I'm doing is performing the operation kill database on target Northwind on DBA tools 1. Now here's an interesting story. The first SQL PS module, if you ran removed SQL database with a what if parameter, what it would do is it would say, what I'm going to do is remove the database on this instance, whilst also removing the database on this instance. So I promise you, that doesn't happen with DBA tools. So do not, under any circumstances, run this code without knowing what you're doing. Definitely do not run it on prod. And if you do run it on prod, Rob did not tell you to do this. In fact, he specifically told you not to do this. Because what we've done is we've said, we now put in a confirm. So it says every time that we get to an action that is changing state. So the get part, it will just run. But any action that's changing state, the removing of a database, I'm going to ask you to confirm. So we have now dropped a remove DBA database will give us the information about dropping. We have a look at our instance. I can't press F8, Rob. If we have a look at our instance, then you'll see that what we have is our system databases and nothing else. So, oh no, a disaster has befallen us, and all of the databases on our production SQL instance have gone, vanished, vamoosed. Everybody is shouting, people are coming to your desk. What do we do? So what we do is we restore the instance to the last available backup with one line of code. So restore-dba database, SQL Instance DBA tools 1, path, the path to our directory of backups. And it's done. Again, what we had at the beginning is, hang on a minute, MSDB exists, so you didn't specify with replace, so I'm just going to skip over that and pretend you made a mistake, because obviously I just wanted stuff back. And then it gave us our backup, told us how many files we used, told us the size that we had, told us the name of the files, and gave us the T-SQL. It's really useful. Many auditing places that want to know when stuff has been restored, actually want that T-SQL or want to store it somewhere. You get that as an output from restore DBA database, and you can go and push it into different places. So one of the good things about doing stuff like this is it means that you can use DBA tools to create test databases. So if we want to create 10 databases, what we can do is you can't press F8, Rob. You're going to have to do that. Yep. Oh, thank you. What I've done is managed not to copy the correct thing. That's better. So I said for each one of 0 to 10, parallel, can you, here is our credential, create me a new name for my database, restore DBA database onto this SQL instance with this credential from this path, and then give it this new name, but also make sure that we change the name of the file and replace the database name in the file. So now we're making sure that we're not getting any of those clashes. So it's really useful. So this is how you can restore the database with a different name. It's how you can restore the database with a different name on the same instance and not get any clashes. You can just make sure that you change the database name when we're doing a restore, and we change the prefix of our file and the name of our file. And what you can see, because we get our T-SQL, we understand the T-SQL, we can read that, is we get restore database pubs 10, in this case, from the disk, and then you've got your move with your new names involved in there. Excellent. So that's super cool. So now we can, if we do this, we can now have a look at our databases that we've got. And if we look at databases name, you can see we've got pubs nothing and 0 to 10 and Northwind available. So that's awesome. Let's back them up to a random path. So we're going to, yep, please do that. Say, here's our random path. I'd like you to back up DBA database. Thank you very much. All of the databases on here compress. We'll compress our backups. Whether it's set as a instance default or not, we'll just do a dash compress backup, and we'll pass in all of the database names. So the same way as we could pass in a whole number of SQL instances, we can also pass in a whole number of database names. We could also pass in a whole number of agent jobs, or a whole number of logins, a whole number of certificates, a whole number. You get the idea. So that's really cool. So we've got some backups, and now we're going to do this. So we'll say for every 1 to 50, 0 to 50, in parallel, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to randomly pick a database and randomly pick a type of backup, and then I'll do the backup, please. And this shows you that you've got a dash type parameter to your backup, which you can have full or a diff or a log. Yep, Tyson, the code is already available on my GitHub. So you will find that at beard.media/git and look for the bits DBA tools. And the recording, I shall leave that answer to David. we'll tell you later. So let's have a look in this path and see what we've got. And this time we've got a whole bundle of files all over the place. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry on, I think. Yep. And this time I'm going to create something even more like your actual environment, because I know what your environment is like, because I've been to your place. And in your backup directory, in your backup share, what you've got is you've got a whole bunch of ordinary backups. So these are going to be the ones that, ooh, that's good. What we have there is a mouse that has fallen in. I am doing well with things that can go wrong in my demos today. Let me grab my trusty backup USB mouse. Right, okay, so I know what your environment's like, because sometimes you have backups that have this. Test for JA, do not delete, .back. What? Oh, yes, I can do that. Of course I can. I'm very sorry, I forgot to press save on that. I got it open and I hadn't actually saved. Where are we at? So yeah, so we've got our do not delete .backup. I don't know why people do that. Do not delete for how long? It doesn't really make sense. We've got our backup for upgrade. Well, when was it? Do we actually know? Did we press go? No, we didn't. And we've got some backups that sort of say testing.back. And that means that now we're going to have 10 or 12 databases on this instance, and we've backed up 50 times, 100 times there with random types of backup, random names. Some of them are copy only. We've got our initial 50 and I think our initial 10. So with all of these backups that we've made, and now what we're going to do is have a quick count of them. Got 98 backups. Well, that's good enough. Sometimes I'll go even further. And this time I'm going to do this. So get DBA database, SQL instance, DBA tools 1, and exclude system, and remove DBA database. And this time I'm not even going to put in a confirm. I'm just going to say confirm : false. So we don't even put a confirm. Now we've got all of our instances have gone. If we have a look at them, let's have a look at this. Here we go. We've got no instances. Now, hopefully, if I get this right, I open up WSL or Windows Terminal, come here. There we are. If I paste this in here, right. Where we end up with too many things on our screen. Yeah. Ah, it's not going to open properly. I did wonder if that path had changed. So if we look in our Docker desktop data, data, where have you gone? Not that one. Should be this one. That folder is empty. Oh no. Because you're going to be in here. Docker. Can't find it. Right, I'm going to stop looking. That's because I've switched to using WSL as my where I host my Docker, and this path is not the right one. Though it does say WSL in it. Anyway, it's not the right one. You can imagine, because you've seen it, what the directory looks like. The directory looks like a whole bundle of fun because it's got full backups and diff backups and log backups. It's got these copy-only ones with various names. You don't know what name they are. And what we're going to do is we are just going to restore them. We are just going to restore them with the restore command, Rob. We're just going to restore them like this. And you're like, okay, how is it doing this? I need to know what's happening here. And what's happening is Stuart Moore, who is very, 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 very clever, has written the code, which means it's going to all of the files on this directory, and it's running restore header only, and it's getting the LSNs and the databases for this this database, and then it's putting back together the restore chain. So it doesn't care about the file path or the name of the file or the date of the file or the date modified of the file or when it was created. All it does is just go through and get all of the databases, and we execute our system. There we go. Now we've got all of our database backups. And you can see that sometimes we had a log and a diff and a full, and sometimes we just had a full and a diff. Will we have any where we've just got full and a log? Nope, don't think so. But you can get the point. Is what it's done is it's just gone and found all of this. Absolutely. It took us, how long did it take? Not very long at all. Oh, I don't even have that on there. A minute and 5 seconds, 20 seconds. It just went through. And if we have a look, we can look at our restore history. Oh, you can't press F8, Rob. Look at our restore history. We can see the name, the database, and which files we use to do our restores. Or if we restore, if we look at it, okay, do it twice. Thank you so much. Okay. You can see the order that we've done them all in. And the last part, the last demo of this is a system that is really easy to build. So you've seen as we've gone along how we can do our backups, how we can do our restores, how we can restore with a different name and a different file name and a different logical name. And we can run all of these commands and we can check what's going on. So we can just run, don't press F8, Rob, can just run test DBA last backup. I only need one instance. So even if you only have one instance, you can validate that your backups are correct because you can restore the latest backup from the from the backup history. You can restore it as a different name. You can make sure that it's restores. You can then do a dbcc check db, and then you can throw it away. And you can go through and you can do that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's one thing that I used to do was I just used to have a system that had a dev instance that would just restore these backups 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just picking a random one from the production backups that we'd got. I just made sure that everything was fine. And every now and again, I'd get some of those corrupted backups that you've all used and put them into there and just make sure we got an alert. Because what we get is, let's do this first and then talk about it, is we put it into a table. And that is as easy as using write DBA data table. Once you realize the power of write DBA data table, you will not forget using it because you can take the output of any PowerShell command you like and you can write it into a database table. And in fact, even if the table doesn't exist, you just have an auto create. You can append, you can truncate, you can imagine the use cases for building things that you can get from here. But for this point, what we're going to do is we're just going to test all of our backups and we're going to write them into our backup, into a backup database. In fact, pubs, because why not? And then we're going to use invoke DBA query, because you can also, if you've got great T-SQL that you've used all over the time, you can also run that, and that will bring you back your objects. So here we go. We've got our output from our test DBA last backup. So it tells us that our restore result was a success. Our DBCC result was a success. Tells us how long it took to restore. So if we wanted to make sure that if we wanted to tell the business how long it was going to take to be able to restore their backup, so we can say, I know it will take this long because it takes this long to do. It takes us how long it takes us to do our DBCC. Tells us which backup we use. We can get all of that information in. So it's really neat. You can put it into anywhere. And if you really want to have some fun, what time is it? 20 past. Why not? Let's do this. Let's restore a database. Here we go. And we're going to restore this database and we're going to call it corrupt. And then we're going to find a page in our clustered index. Here we go. So we're doing DBCC ind. We're finding our database in the authors table. We're now going to grab that PID into page. There we go, 88. Now we need to turn on a trace flag. dbatools is excellent at turning on trace flags. Here we go. Enable DBA trace flag, easy as that. Trace flag 3604. And now I'm going to make a guess at 128 because this location has worked in the past. Okay, so we're going to use right page. So all of the rules that go around using right page are careful. Don't do this in production. If you do this in production, it was not Rob that told you to do it. Somebody else told you to do it. I really mean it. No, really, I really mean it. Okay, you have to decide that you're going to run this by uncommenting it. And I am going to have to do it by pasting it. And you can see that I've even made sure there's 2 comments so that you can't accidentally do it. There we go. Oh, excellent. Look at that. We've got a failure. Brilliant. Let's do a dbcc check db. Quickly, what we're going to get is, come on. There we go. dbcc check db. What a surprise. If you mess with a page, you're going to get a dbcc check db failure. Excellent. So maybe what happened was we didn't notice this. It didn't come up anywhere. Nobody hit that particular page. So we've backed it up. We backed it up a few times. And now, if we run the same code again, we're going to test DBA last backup. So it's going to go and grab the last backup. This time we're going to use a different instance. So we're going to take the backups that are on our production, dbatools 1. I'm going to put them into our destination, that's dbatools 2, and we're going to then write the outputs into our database. And once that's done, so a quick drink because I am also hot. I haven't shut down, but I am hot. We can then go and query the database. And what I just did was I had this running as an agent job over and over again, and just ask it to alert whenever we had something that looked like this. So what we have here is we've queried for our database name of corrupt me, and it tells us, well, it restored okay. But when we did a DBCC result, what we got was a load of errors. And here are our errors. So excellent. So we don't have to worry about where they are. We can just go and grab them out of the database. And there is all of our information ready for us. So it's super good. Now, you want to get more complex. You want to restore to a point in time. You want to restore from striped files, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Absolutely. Go and check out DBA Advanced Restore. If you wish to come and carry on playing, because there's all sorts of other stuff here. There's copying and there's snapshots and there's exporting and there's availability groups and finding things and masking and logins and migrations and advanced migrations and registered servers and DBA checks validation. Then you can find all of that. If we come to here, if we do a beard.media/Rob/git, that's going to take you to the wrong place. Awesome. appeared.media slash, maybe it's gitgub would also definitely work. It's going to take you to my GitHub account, and then we're going to go to our repositories. And if we go to repositories and we type in bits DBA tools, there is the repository. This is literally the code that you've been running. If you haven't got Docker, then one thing you can do is you can, oh, I haven't got one, is you can then create a code space. So we'll let that run for a minute. Here is all of our, all of our code. So it was Rob and Jess's magical training day repository. So you can go and find that. It'll tell you exactly how to start using it, and then you can just enjoy and literally do exactly what I've done here and break stuff and practice, and it gives you some instances and be able to do it. So I'm going to wait and see if there are any questions. In the meantime, we'll just let the code log do, see if that's going to go, how quick that's going to be, and see if there's any questions for anybody.
There we go. Have you run into any limitations with using DBA tools with SQL Server on Linux?
The only limitations you're going to get are the DBA tools commands that use the Windows API. So whilst you're using, let me turn my camera back on again. There we go. Whilst you're using your SQL servers running in Linux, and it's using PAL, the platform abstraction layer, to translate any of those operating system API calls to make sure they go through to the right thing. DBA tools isn't that clever. So what DBA tools does is it looks for, it can only work with the operating system that it's on. So some of the DBA files, some of the certificate things, they are not going to work on non-Windows operating systems. But you should find that they're not actually available to you on the system, so they shouldn't import into the module anymore. When you import the module, it should detect that we're in Linux and not actually load those functions that you can't use. But as with all things, you might find the odd thing that's slipped through. But that's the only limitation. Otherwise, it's exactly the same as you would expect. SQL Server on Linux is exactly the same as SQL Server on Windows, and programmatically with SMO, with PowerShell, it's exactly the same.
Wait, I think that's the only question so far. I
Wow.
can uncomfortably say I'm going to be watching this at half speed.
I did say to you I could talk forever.
Oh, this is great. This is absolutely great. This is really good stuff.
I love it. And that demo is one of my favorite demos. I need to fix that that Explorer view to find it, so you can see that whole mashup of things. And this is code spaces, so you can also see that you can run in code spaces. And what are we doing? Still loading. Come on, we can do this. Of course, it's probably it's installing the module. I think you see it's busy doing stuff up here. But this is literally, you can clone the repository. There we are. Ta-da! Now we are running. Thank you very much. SQL Server is running, available to us. So you can actually, in code spaces, you can actually connect to the SQL Server instance in Management Studio or in ADS or with PowerShell from your own machine back into here, which is, I always think is pretty cool. We not got a terminal yet. Come on, give me a terminal. We've got SQL servers running. Got two SQL servers running. Look, 1433, 1434. We've got our endpoints. There we go. Feel like playing a game. Let's see now. Here we are. You can see, look, I'm in a browser. This is a browser, and once we get to there, it's going to be a little bit slow because this code space is probably not got very many resources. Come on. Get, I didn't quite get it right. Get dash DBA database minus SQL instance. What do we call them? DBA tools. Look, it's all pre-filled for us. There's the one. And there's our instances. Here we go. White table. Papa. And we should have 2 instances there. There you go. You don't even need to have a machine. All you need to do is a browser. You can even do this on an iPad. And I promise you can, because I have tested it just to see if it would work. So thank you very much for having me. If there are no more questions for right now, then thank you. I shall go and enjoy the sunshine in the UK. Otherwise, if you do have questions in the future, then come and find me. My name's Rob. You'll find me as SQL DBA with a beard. Choose your social media of choice, and I will be happy to answer questions.
This was absolutely fantastic. Thank you very, very much. If anybody's watching this after the fact on YouTube, just like you said, do not hesitate to reach out to them. We're all nerds. We all enjoy this stuff. We're all happy to answer anybody's questions with any of this. So thank you again. And thank you for everybody for attending and watching this after the fact. And we look forward to seeing you the next time.